Good evening, everybody. Hi, and my name is Ben Kowalski-Grayheck. I am here with Jay and Piper from the Troth, and you are here listening to Althing Considered. So tonight on Althing Considered, we're going to be talking about holidays. But first, you're cracking me up when I'm trying to do my NPR voice.
I'm sorry. You're just doing such a lovely job. It's fantastic.
So I'm Ben. I'm the communications director for the Troth. Jay, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us what you do for our organization?
Yes, I am Jay, and I am the secretary of the Troth.
Jay, what does a secretary do?
I basically I liaise with every volunteer and try and help collaborate with them and see if there's anything I can do to help supervise or basically make their jobs any easier. And in the event that I am needed to do so, I would also advise the assistant vice president and the assistant president and the president.
And Jay also keeps us legal because it is legally required that we have a secretary. Yeah. All right, and Piper.
Yes. Hi, I'm Piper. I am the public relations director for the Troth, and tonight, also talking about interesting, cool holidays that we've sort of borrowed from our friends across the sea.
That's right. Yes, we're going to talk about one holiday in particular. That would be Sunwait. That's the one everyone's been sun-waiting for. And I'm groaning at channeling Ben Wagoner there. Just channeling it. We love you, Ben. So we're going to talk about holidays. We're going to go through some new holidays, where we get our traditions from, what do we actually know about holiday traditions, which ones do we have evidence for, and how much evidence do we have for them? Spoiler alert, not much. And how do we build new traditions in the modern age? But first, we're going to do some updates. We're going to do some events. The big one that I get to announce is that Frith Forge 2024 has been announced. Thanks to our wonderful international relations team, or actually team of one, Amanda, whose whole thing really is keeping us connected with our partners abroad and putting together these kinds of conferences and opportunities for different heathen groups to work together. For those who don't know what Frith Forge is, it's an international conference of inclusive heathenry that includes, also true groups, Norse pagan groups, Germanic pagan groups from across the world, for us to come together in one place, one space, to talk about problems that face our communities, how we can serve our communities better, and how we can build more resilient communities, how we can fight back against things like racism, poverty, inequity, and just build a better world as heathens in partnership with those groups. And just to give a couple examples, which I had actually up here. So the first conference actually had 14 different organizations, Alliance for Inclusive Heathenry. Oh, okay. So the ADF was there. Does anyone here know how to pronounce the full name of the ADF? I've only seen it written.
I've heard it pronounced Arndrocht Frein, but I also don't speak Scots Gaelic, so I could be like miles off.
And I was part of the organization for years and have never been able to pronounce it correctly. So
they teach you it as you ascend.
Right.
This is what we're called.
You finally stop embarrassing yourself by pronouncing it wrong. So ADF was there, big organization. Also through Fellesskap Bifrost from Norway was there. Also through Iberica was there. Also through Schweiz was there. Also through UK. Sippschaft, that's the Urglaube organization run by our former steer emeritus, Rob Schreiber. Eldering in Germany, the Nechenverhelden. I love Dutch. Love it. Nechen verelden. Norris tingsfellig. Samfundet von Sverige. The Troth. And Verein für Germanisches Heidentum. World. Did I trip over all my Germanic languages there? If anyone's watching internationally, I am so sorry for my terrible pronunciation of like 5 different Germanic languages, including English. So it was a big to-do back in 2017, and this time having it in Costa Rica, we actually are so excited about this because this is kind of the debut, the international debut of the showing of the Central American heathen community, and the South American heathen community is going to play host to this. So we are now going to get to really see Central American and South American heathenry take center stage at this particular conference. So it's in Costa Rica. We are really excited about this. Our hosts are the Yggdrasil Association of Costa Rica. We really have a good friendship with their leader, Esteban Sevilla. I was just on a call with him yesterday. He's a super swell guy. If you guys go actually check out the website for Frith Forge, you can actually see a conversation we had with Esteban about the history of heathenry in Central America, the Caribbean, and South America. It is a lot bigger than most people think. It actually is a thriving community down there. So we are excited to come down and spend a couple days with them. And we invite, everyone who came to any other one to come to this one too. So we can work together to forge a better world in Frith Forge. Yeah. Boom. Piper.
Yes.
So let's talk about some other kind of trophy things coming up.
Okay, so this month we have sorry, hold please while I look this up. November's Drinks and Divinations is this month, November 26th, over Zoom. And that's a really fun place, and it's really for all people that are experimenting with, to people that have been doing it for decades. I mean, there's always something new and interesting to learn. At Drinks and Divination, it's one of the funnest things that I like to go do when I have time. Also this month, we have the volunteer fair and member moot this month. And I am looking for a date on here. The 19th of November, also on Zoom. The Troth is a member volunteer taking care of organization. We work very hard to educate and serve our community. But we can only do that when we have enough people, right, to cover everything. So if you are in any way interested in volunteering at the Troth, please come see us on the 19th. We have some wonderful opportunities, including volunteering for Frith Forge. We've got our service department is always looking for volunteers for our In Reach program, for which is our prison program where we teach about inclusive heathenry in a place where it's really hard to be inclusive. I really admire our prison, our In Reach program. We're also looking at adding more people to a Red Hammer. We're looking at adding more people to just about every service that you might need as a heathen and a member of the Troth. So please join us on the 19th on Zoom. And even if you don't want to volunteer, there might be something that you can put a note on for yourself in the future.
And there's volunteer opportunities for people of all different sorts of ability or proclivity. So if you don't happen, for example, our In Reach program, if you say, look, I'm not comfortable going into prison, actually volunteering and doing chaplaincy, we still need people to answer letters. Right? We still need people to coordinate getting supplies to the chaplains that we have relationships with. They want books. They want publications. They want publications lists. People are hungry for this stuff, and we need volunteers to help fill that. So if you're saying like, I don't know if I can volunteer, even though I care about InReach and that's something I'm passionate about, I just don't know if I can, if I have the ability to speak in front of an audience and minister to people. That's fine. That's fine. You don't have to. You could open letters, answer letters, send publications, collect donation publications as well. There's so much that you can do regardless of what your ability or your proclivity is. Like I was telling Piper, I personally don't like public speaking. But it's unfortunate the gods made me so good at it. And let me think, what else do we have? And we also have a Decibloat ritual this weekend. Yes. I don't recall what, Piper, did you find out what time it was?
I'm not seeing a time, or I know it's probably going to be up this weekend. The recording is probably going to be up, but I'm not sure exactly what time it is. And I apologize. I'm just not finding it.
Yeah. Apologies in advance, guys. I don't have a time. I will have it up on our Troth website as soon as I have that information available. The ritual, as far as I know, is going to be conducted by Lauren Crow, President and CEO of the Troth, and Ben Wagoner as well. He is going to help facilitate that ritual. And Decibloat is how we close out the winter night's holy tide. And speaking of holy tides, that transitions us very nicely into our main topic for tonight, which was on holidays.
Yes.
How do we celebrate them? What happens if we don't have anyone to celebrate them with? And if we're out of the habit or out of the spirit of things, what would make us jump back in? So, Piper.
One of the first one we're talking about is Sunwait, and Sunwait is an interesting one. It's one that my wife and I have discussed practicing. I heard about it on the Gifts of Weird when John was talking about this holiday from Sweden where 6 weeks before Christmas you use a rune per week and you count down those 6 weeks. And of course, we heard about it after the holiday season was over last year. So we're planning on practicing it this year. But we haven't actually practiced it yet. So, but the thing about it and the runes that they have in there, let's see, let's make sure I have the right page open. The significance, I guess, is the sort of the counting down to the longest night, right? And I personally, as someone that is very much into spirits of place, find this to be a very calendar comforting way of sort of acknowledging that it's getting darker, right? And a lot of people aren't real keen on that, but actually it's more restful when it gets darker, or those are the times where you get to rest with your friends and family and talk about what's important to you all. You reevaluate and, say your values are great. You reaffirm and reevaluate your values. Thank you. Words. Anyway. Thanks. The first date.
All right. So you're gonna have. Yeah. So this is where So this is Ben's blunder. Which
go ahead.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear to laugh at me. So this was. So I was confused as to the calculation of Sunwait. Me, the person who designed the one holy and accurate Universal Catholic Troth, Universal
The calendar.
Troth,
Yes.
yeah, Holy Apostolic Troth calendar was incorrect about the reckoning of Sunwait. Please just post your condemnation, just shame in the chat if you want to, just capital shame. But I miscalculated. I thought so. If I'm correct, Piper, it's including Yule.
Yes.
Including the week of Yule.
Yes.
Every Thursday, 6 back. So
right.
Thursday of Yule week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you, Brian. I hold on, I'm gonna put this up on the screen so everyone can see.
Oh, awesome.
Yep. Shame.
Oh no. But the thing is, I calculated it wrong too. And I think the reason that is because we celebrate Yule and they're calculating it to Christmas. Right.
Oh,
so
wasn't Yule but Yule's on Thursday
Yule's on Thursday this year.
That's exactly it. That is guys.
Yeah, it's totally cool. I did the same thing actually. I calculated it poorly as well, and then you had said something. I went, "Oh crap! I should go back and look at that." And it's because of It's because Yule's on Thursday.
Yule is as everyone knows. Yule is on Thursday. Those of you fools who celebrate on the solstice, as opposed to the people who celebrate correctly but alone on the full moon after the new year. Right. Yeah. No offense to those of you who two Christmases. I'm into that. Yeah. Jay, for you, where do you fall on the Yule calculation? Do you say yes, 21st? That's when everyone else seems to do it, or and we're going to get into this. Historically, it seems to be more likely that it's in midwinter, somewhere in late January.
As somebody who doesn't get much opportunity to actively celebrate the holidays, I know that my personal inclination would be to look back on the history and try and let that inform my decision. But if it's a question of the rest of the community, I mean, that's kind of what holidays are for, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes.
Friends and family coming together.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if everybody else is getting together at a different time than I don't want to be that jerk on December 25th saying Merry Christmas or whatever.
So, or the guy who you call up and, hey, you coming over? No, you coming over for Yule? No, it's in January. You fools.
Right, exactly.
Any idea how much fun you're not supposed to be having right now? Look, why have fun when you can be right? That's how I feel.
I mean, if being right is an option.
Well, when I started way when rocks were soft long ago, Yule was still calculated as winter solstice. So. And it's, of course, been through the scholarship of some really brilliant people that we have in the Troth that have widened that perspective so that it gives us, because the whole point of holidays, as Jay said, is for us to get together as people, right? As for us to worship and talk to each other and build bridges and be together. And if that is on the 21st or if that is in mid-January, you have more options, right? Yeah. You can plan a Yule that's away from Christmas.
And I can tell you, the holiday spirit in Minnesota around late January is in pretty short supply. Not gonna lie. In late January, Minnesotans start looking at each other that person might. I'm not saying I'm gonna eat them, but.
At
the end of January, start making your mental list.
Right. Oh, for sure. Yeah. And the thing is, a lot of places that get a lot of snow, which, this is where this faith is that's the origin of our faith, is that you do get that time about mid-January where you're like, cabin fever, I will kill everyone in this cabin.
And unless you're our friends on the other side of the hemisphere, and they're in the peak summer right then.
Yeah. So
fun for them. Let's see. As far as like, what are the true ancient heathen holy days? Does anyone know what are the true ancient holy holidays that we have? The absolute truth holy holidays. Anybody?
Bear in mind, the heathen Inquisition will come banging down your door.
You're wrong. You will pay.
If you say the wrong thing,
yeah, you will.
Somebody's going to come take an axe to your door and let you know online how wrong you are.
I seem to remember there's only 3 that are attested in the lore, TM. There is victory celebration sometime in the summer. There is Yule, I think, and then there's another one, and I don't remember which one.
Winter Nights.
Thank you. Winter Nights, the one we just had, the one we're having right now.
I also just want to point this out from Diane. Why not both? Yeah. Well, the Troth certainly supports having both on our holy and perfect calendar. We include both. We include midwinter and Yule. You can celebrate them as 2 separate holidays, or you can just celebrate them as 2 Yules. But I don't know. I tend to refer to one as Yule and the other one as midwinter. It's a different holiday. It's a different vibe. It's a different vibe then.
Very much different vibe.
But yes, the Snorri Sturluson in I think it's Heimskringla mentions 3 high holidays, bloats, Sigurblot, the Winter Nights, and Yule. And that was where he said these bloats were performed. And I think he talks about one, I think it's Winter Nights, where King Hakon the Good, where he's a Christian king, and he's trying to, like, he's the nice guy. He's the nice guy. He wants to be everybody's friend. So he comes to heathen celebration, and he's trying to schmooze. Like, he's trying to get these guys on his side. He wants them to support his bid for king, right? So he's trying to get these people on his side. But they say, like, well, you're the king. If you want to be the king, you have to perform the sacrifices, right? Like, you have to do that. That's going to be your gig, but you got to do it. And he does it, even though he's Christian, he still does it. And then then there's the famous scene where he's sitting and drinking afterwards. They're having a little drinky poo, and he blesses his cup with the sign of the cross. And one of his friends has to jump in and say, "Oh, no! He's just doing the sign of. He's just blessing it with the sign of the hammer." Is what it is. That's that famous particular episode. But that took place, I believe, that was during a Winter Nights celebration. So we have a couple different attestations of holidays. There was, and then from then on, there's a bunch of other ones that, like, Midsummer is another one that is barely glanced off of in the saga of Olaf Tryggvason, where there was something going on around Midsummer that he made into a Christian holiday. Mm-hmm. So, like, the pagans would do something at this time, and Olaf said, no, we're going to make it this now. So that was I believe that's when he said it was St. John's Eve. So that's why Midsummer became Midsummer, just flipping it back. So, and I'm trying to think of other holidays as well. Ostara, I don't know. It's certainly on the calendar, but it's attested in, I think, only in Bede. And he only says it's like the name of a month where there was a holiday in that month. There was a holiday in the month named after the goddess, or just the month was named after a goddess. I can't recall.
Yeah.
Does anyone recall any other holidays? This isn't a quiz. You guys aren't going to be graded or anything.
Gods, I hope not. Well, there are holidays that were holy periods that are more like spirit of place based that we do. We're gonna have I always like disting in February because that's when chickens start laying eggs again. And that's where you can start having, because you have enough light in the sky for chickens to know that they can lay eggs. And that's one of my favorites, actually, because that means winter is almost over. I don't actually have to eat my neighbor.
We're really getting people today. Can we avoid the cannibalism? Well, you are in Colorado. You know, you guys had the famous dinner.
Oh, yeah. Alfred Packer. Yes. It's very much a very famous story here. But I mean, cabin fever is growing up rural and poor, cabin fever is a very serious actual thing. When you have a bunch of people that cannot leave, that are all together, there has to be something that brightens up that season. And so that's one of my favorites, personally. Distant.
It brings a whole new meaning to calling somebody a snack.
Yes, it does.
It's a terrific meaning. Oh man, I didn't realize we were going to talk about holidays and not talking about cannibalism. No, and there's also there's a little bit of, I wouldn't even say it's debate, but maybe some confusion as to disting and disablot.
Yes.
Disting and disablot. They are two, as
totally
far as
different.
we can tell, they were two different things. This ting, as opposed to that ting, this ting was a celebrate. God, even when Ben Wagner is not here, he's here.
Yes, he's still here.
Yeah. So Disting is as far as we can tell, it's a Swedish. It was a Swedish custom. That's where it's attested to. Could have been bigger, we don't know, but it was like a fair and a festival and like a carnival type thing where people would get together and celebrate and just have a good time. There wasn't any, I didn't see anything about like a sacrifice taking place then.
Right.
Disablot is a blot for the disir, which most modern heathen interpret to be female women ancestors, or whatever you regard as an ancestor, or you might even say like female protective spirits, or if you really break it down, like protective spirits that tend to follow one's personage through their life, as opposed to spirits of a particular place,
right.
which would be more like Alfar. If you break down Alfar, you see it's more often that Alfar are identified with spirits of a particular place, tied to a particular space, like a grave mound, a forest, a tree, or something like that. There would be an Alf there. A Disir usually seem to be following a person, or a group of people. So there's your difference right there. So you might, but today it's usually like identified as male and female, although in the lore, it tends to function as one is in place, the other is with people.
Right. And I grew up actually in a little mountain town who had winter carnival every first week of February every year, because you get out, you had Vikings and Yetis, you were outside in a time where you didn't get to be.
We in Minnesota, we actually have a winter carnival every year, where I don't know if any of you guys are any one of the chats from good old St. Paul. I am. We have a winter carnival every single year in St. Paul, where these legendary figures do battle. Which I find interesting that they decide to do it in February, because it's these red dressed characters called the Vulcans, I see your face, Jay.
Yeah.
They're called the Vulcans, but they look like little. They're all dressed in red with like little horns. They're not devils; they're Vulcans. They're little, maybe like fire sprites, you might say.
Right.
It's like a fraternal order in St. Paul. Like it's actually considered to be somewhat of a, I don't know what to say if it's an honor. But it's something of a thing to like be a Vulcan. Like if you get to be a Vulcan, like it's like your father was a Vulcan, your grandfather was a Vulcan. It's usually men, and they usually go around the volcanic. Yes, I'm gonna put this up. Yeah, volcanic Vulcans. That's right. Yeah, it's fire guys, and they ride around on a big red fire engine. And they ride around throughout town just like for the last couple weeks of January to February. They just go through town causing all kinds of like drunken havoc. Like there are people who kind of love the Vulcans, like, oh, it's kind of celebratory, but then there are people who when they come into the bar, they're just like, oh no, not them, because they have a reputation for getting rowdy in bars, and then they participate in the parade where they dethrone King Boreas, who's the personification of winter, and there's lots of fire and stuff all over the place. It's a very pagan-y celebration, right? Like it seems super pagan,
impressive,
but it's you see like people from all different kinds of walks of life, and I'm more than certain that everyone who is a Vulcan is probably a devout Lutheran.
Yep.
But they still dress up. They still do this kind of little show every year. And yes, Brian, yes, it's not an honor; it is a distinction. Yes, you are picked out. The few, the proud. Yeah, there it is. Chaos, let the shenanigans. Yes, that's sort of what it is. Kat, it's sort of the Vulcans are the spirit of fun, and Boreas is more of the stuffy. He's like wearing a business suit and that kind of thing, and the Vulcans are just fun and running around with playing with fire everywhere. So that's what we do in St. Paul for what I might call our disting.
Mm-hmm.
Jay, do you guys have a winter carnival in Florida?
No. The closest we get to a winter carnival in Florida is some of the theme parks here will launch soap suds from the rooftops, and so it looks like snow falling. And
yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm still not entirely convinced this winter exists. Like, the temperature drops for a few months out of the years, and then that's hurricane season, right? That's when you guys get all your hurricanes.
Yeah. No. We in Minnesota get vortices from the other direction.
You guys get nightmare storms off the lakes. I've heard about those.
Well, that's Boston. No, not Boston. Buffalo. That's like Buffalo, New York area.
Oh, okay.
So they get the lake effect stuff. The Twin Cities usually gets the polar vortex, which is wind that comes directly from the North Pole, blows down through through the big flat Canadian states because nothing in their way, blows all the way down to slap. You can it actually does look like a slap coming down from the poles to slap the northern states. Yeah, that's that. It's what I like this. Thank you, Brian. Brian's on fire tonight.
Right? Yeah. No, Brian's right. Like, I mean, I don't know what this like winter is coming nonsense is. I mean, you just live in Florida.
Yeah, and that's another. It's another.
Don't do it. Don't live in Florida. Get out of here. Here, please.
And I don't know. I feel like it's so how do you guys feel about, maybe this is a good way to segue to this, incorporating like local traditions that aren't necessarily heathen into your heathenry, or holidays that are like American holidays into your heathenry, or looking at them differently. Carl and I'll tell you a little bit about what preface this. or what triggered this in my mind. Carl and I were talking last week about Halloween and seeing Halloween in a heathen way, in the way of winter nights, right? And like understanding it as part of winter nights, as part of a reflection on life and death, and sort of seeing it as a really actually quite a lovely holiday where, you get to watch kids grow up. You get to see someone's childhood basically as they come to your door each and every year with a different costume. And 1 year they're 4, the next they're 5, next they're 6, next they're 7, and then they're gone, right? Then they're not doing it. It's a way to kind of reflect on just life, right? As you hand out buckets of candy. So is there other kinds of ways that you can think of holidays or incorporate different kinds of holidays that aren't necessarily heathen into your practice? Anyone?
One of my favorite things to do is sort of celebrate summer is actually incorporate the 4th of July. Because the 4th of July is like the quintessential American celebration of summer. I mean, yes, there's patriotism and all that other stuff that goes with that too, but mostly, right, you're watching people get together, eat food, and enjoy a day together, usually. And that's one that I like because we don't actually... and because our calendar is sort of very much, or at least our ancient calendar is very much a more of an agricultural calendar. Most of us don't live agricultural lives now. So that is a way, and so ancient calendars don't have a lot of stuff in the summer except, yay, let's go reading. Where 4th of July is it's family oriented. You've got a lot of concerts, you've got a lot of things, and you're appreciating the weather and the beauty around you and all of those sorts of things. So, yeah.
Oh, I love Kay's comment here.
Yeah.
Incorporate less typical holidays. May 15th is the day we expect. No frost for gardening. The no frost, you're probably, so I'm going to guess you're from a northern clime. Yeah, I would say May 15th is around the time when you say it's not going to drop below 0 or below freezing. And I will be safe to plant my stuff. Yeah, that's a great way. That's a great way to incorporate locality. I think too, what was I thinking? You were thinking of 4th of July. I was thinking of, what's another holiday? Jay, you should talk while I think. I don't know what I lost my train of thought.
Another holiday is Labor Day. And
yes,
it's not any sort of specific heathen holiday, but in my own practice and perspective, I look at certain beings like Thor as a god of laborers and the working man and those who make their living, as it were, by their hands instead of just using their head all day. So on days like Labor Day, I will often do a personal prayer and sacrifice to Thor as well. It's not exactly like incorporating major holidays into my practice, but most of my practice doesn't really involve holidays anyway. So generally that's what I will do, is I will try and make a sacrifice to, or at least give a prayer or write a poem or something in sacrifice to an ancestor, not an ancestor, one of the honored dead. We all know people who passed on that aren't necessarily related to us, who we still honor in prayer, or a local land spirit, or a deity even that is in keeping with the spirit of that holiday.
Yes.
Sorry, that's a bit of a tangent there, but that's how I do with holidays.
That was exactly good. What we're talking about.
Yes.
You're right on topic. I do want to point out, I just want to give a shout out to Stacy here. Great in the chat for the Halloween day. the grandkids and I went through all their toys and clothes and took them to the shelter, so that the 1st of November we started the year out right. Yes,
Nice.
I love that you did that. That's such great service. That is exactly the I would say that is truly honoring the gods and the community, and by giving as they give.
Yeah, that's passing on your own prosperity. I mean,
yes,
how can that not be a blessed thing?
Right. And I also, Diane had a comment to make: incorporating personal traditions is the difference between living heathenry and reenacting the past. Yes, history is so important, but a living practice changes and grows. Absolutely, Diane, absolutely. And I want to say another, while you were talking, Jay, I thought of the holiday that I was thinking of, because I'm a beer guy. Obviously, just look at how I dress. The holiday that I love to incorporate around harvest time is Oktoberfest.
Oktoberfest
is huge in the Twin Cities.
Oh, I bet.
Oh,
I would love.
I apologize,
I would love to get in a proper Oktoberfest celebration at least once. Beer just feels like a consummation between the contract between humanity and the earth. Labor and time in exchange for sustenance.
There you go.
Yeah.
And I do want to call out. I apologize, Dale, for mispronouncing it. I saw that Diane at the end, and I kept pronouncing Diane. So thank you, Dale. But yes, I mean the story of Oktoberfest to me is a classic harvest. Like it's a story about a wedding, like a super big wedding that it was what was it, King Ludwig of Bavaria was marrying a princess, and it was the first time that the common people were allowed to like celebrate with. So they opened up all the stocks of the beer, and they loved it so much that they wanted to celebrate this. They said that, why don't we do this every year?
Yeah.
No, they just kept doing it because it was fun, and it really encompasses. You're right, that kind of harvest tradition of just bringing in the grain, using it to make the beer, drinking it, and just listening to music and having a good time. And really, it's just that peak of harvest right at the end. So that's another wonderful holiday that I like to incorporate. Just kind of a joyous celebration. I don't think we get enough of those. I think Brian has fun. I observed Towel Day on May 25th, also known as Geek Day. It's not at all heathen. It is a tribute to the late author Douglas Adams, and I do participate by carrying a towel, as you should.
Yes.
As you should. Do not forget your towel.
Never know when it's going to come in handy.
Right. You never know. It's the one thing that everybody seems to forget. You've always got to bring a towel. Let me think. Let's check I want to keep checking back on our agenda. Lauren put in here another holiday called Thorablot.
Yeah, I looked that up, and it's on Wikipedia. It looks like it's a modern festival that came about in the second half with romantic nationalism in Iceland. Yes.
It begins the 13th week of winter between January 19th and 25th in modern Gregorian reckoning. Yes. So yes, that is actually included in some of our sources for the Holy and Perfect Troth calendar. That is in there. The branding. That's what I do. But so Thorablot actually kind of seems a lot for the way they talk about it. It sounds a lot like the Winter Carnival type thing, like like a battle between, because Thori was actually not. They interpreted it in Romantic nationalism as being a Thor, but it actually refers to kind of a old man winter type figure, Thori, who's like a frost giant, like kind of an old man winter type figure in Iceland. So it seems to me, and of course I can't, there's not that much on it, how it was celebrated previously, but I don't know. It feels to me like around the time when all of these customs of dethroning the Winter King seems to come about. So yeah, for one of the midwinter celebrations, that winter carnival actually makes its way into that practice because it's just such a lovely theme. Even though in Minnesota, if you think that February 2nd, or if you think like the last week of January is midwinter, you are sadly mistaken. It's not.
Yes.
No, it's mid, but it's not midwinter.
Right.
As the kids say. Mid. I did want to mention though about why oh, that's a deep cut. Thora Birch, actress. I think she's most famous for being the kid in Hocus Pocus, Brian. That's the only thing I remember Thora Birch from, is that she was the kid in Hocus Pocus, because we're like about the same age. And I was like that age when Hocus. So I was a kid when Hocus Pocus came out. I dated myself there. For those kids now, Hocus Pocus was a movie.
Yes.
But I wanted to talk to just a little bit about the why we seem to think that our holidays are based around an agrarian calendar. The reason for that, as far as I can tell from research, is we actually don't know why our holidays were celebrated at all. We have zero sourcing giving us the story behind the holidays. So most Christians know the story of Christmas, why it's December 25th. They don't know that the real reason is because, and it's not because they stole it from pagans. Okay, just clear that out of your mind. It's just because some guy had a theory that people were conceived on the day that they died, and this guy ended up becoming Pope and deciding that it was December 25th. Was the birth date, because he had to have been conceived on the day he died, which that year was March 25th. So yeah, Jay's giving a look like, huh? Like, yeah. People in ancient times believed weird stuff too. Like,
I was about to say, how long did they think a pregnancy lasted?
9 months exactly.
Okay, so then there's 9 months to a year, obviously.
But he measured out 9 months precisely.
Oh boy.
Yeah, he clearly it was a dude who figured it out.
That's the problem with predicting the future and telling it to other people, is they'll remember it.
And Brian, I love this kind of, if you're important enough, everyone has to follow your pet theories. I abide by that every day, Brian. And let me remind everyone again about the holy and perfect Troth calendar that is invaluable. And I certainly did not contribute some editorial stuff to it.
It magically appeared.
It magically appeared on stone tablets, and only I can read them.
Hey.
So the reason why this follows an agrarian calendar is because we really don't know why. Like, aside from these 3 holidays, we really don't have a lot of evidence for other holidays, and we don't know why even those 3 were celebrated. Like, Snorri gives a theory like, oh, it's for victory. Yule's for a good year. This is for a good harvest. Okay, but there, every religion has a story behind, like Ramadan. Why does Ramadan happen? Well, because that's the month that the angel Gabriel came down to Muhammad and revealed the Quran to him. That's why it's Ramadan. Easter's Easter because that's the day Jesus died. That's he was resurrected. Sorry, that was when he came back. But in our faith, we don't know. We don't have those stories anymore. They're gone, and probably gone forever. We will likely have to make up new ones as to why we celebrate those holidays. So I wanted to ask, do you guys have any stories behind why you celebrate the holidays you do, besides saying, well, in the farming days, that's when this would have happened, which I feel is like more of an academic description than a description you tell to, like, well, come on, kids, gather around the fire, and I shall tell you the tale of why we celebrate Yule. Anyone got a couple stories? Chat, you can go ahead and throw in if you have any stories that you've built up around your practices. Again, I think this is what we were talking about before, is like having a living faith as well. So anyone have any stories that they tell? Don't make me be the only one who got one.
I'm trying to think, because I have an adult now, so it's been a very long time since I told an origin story in that sort of way. And it is one of the sad things about not being around a lot of, kiddos in this point in my life. I used to tell this story about spring, actually, and Ostara, and waking up from under. It was a lot like Snow White. Snow White and Ostara were kind of, kissed by the sun, and then wakes up and we get springtime, right? Kiddos always liked that particular story. But that's more of a, as sometimes many of our practices, that was a make it up as you go along. But yeah, that's the one I have.
So that's a good one. And it's, with kids, it is shocking just how much they believe you. So with my daughter, I'm constantly telling her stories, constantly. Like, for example, and sometimes, it can actually help them in a way to not be so scared. Like, my daughter was really scared of thunder until I told her that's just the sound of Thor pressing rain out of the clouds.
Nice. Yes. Very
so now
nice.
she actually listens for it. And I said, like, and the louder it is, the closer he is.
Yeah.
And she will listen. She's like, oh, he's coming.
Ooh, that's so cool.
She gets so psyched about it now. So it's gone from being afraid to being
right?
And now she's like, oh, the storm's coming. He's pressing out the water, pressing out the rain. And the next one that I had was like, I have a whole cycle since there's really not a lot tying these things together around midwinter, Diesting, and Ostara or Sigurblod, that I sort of revolve around a cycle of like this classic romantic love story between Freyr and a giant maiden who's the daughter of King Thori,
right? The King of Winter. Awesome.
King of Winter, and so he tries to get this the daughter of Winter to marry him. The father won't allow it, and so they pray to the lady Freya to help them. And in the end, when the sun returns, right, it's Lady Freya showing her necklace and melting King Thori.
Oh.
And saving, and then there's a big wedding between the ice maiden and Freya. So that's why that's the cycle. That's the basic end of the cycle. Like, that's why we celebrate those holidays, and that's why we celebrate them in that particular order. That's my story.
That's a really cool story. Why have we not written this down?
Yeah, Ben, why haven't you written this down?
In your copious amounts of free time.
Yeah. Free time, right? Brian has actually. So
yeah.
Kay has one, we have a few stories here. Kay has one. So it's not heathen per se, but the family would witch for water. So I'm gonna guess it's like a water witch type thing. Didn't have a story, but sort of some people would have talent. But has to be fined well. So it's like a family history type thing. Kat says, hey, that's likely how many of the rituals got started. Yeah, I agree. And Brian's tale, not really a story. Okay. But here's a short version of why I celebrate Yule, Christmas, etc. When the darkness of winter lay heavy upon the land, no crops grew, and the people drank, sang, loved, and fought. In their great halls, their communal celebration were a mighty affirmation of light against dark, life against death. This season is for revelry, mirth, and spiritual asylum. It almost kind of feels like the reason to celebrate Oktoberfest. Like, hey, everyone just had such a good party. We just thought, like, why don't we do this every year?
Right.
Maybe people were just, the pushed back against the dark. And Kat says, humans like answers and they like stories. If those stories provide answers, it's only natural. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. One last one from Stacy here. Loving the chat interaction tonight. Thank you guys so much for coming and watching. As we would put the very large log in the fireplace, my grandfather would tell us Odin would protect us for the full year as long as that log burned for a full 24 hours. So we try and stay awake. And I celebrate Yule in January. Oh, the few, the proud.
Yeah.
But hey, that's a good time anyway. Oh, we got a new person in chat. Okay, chat. One more. New person.
This one's good. Yeah.
Christy, love this. We have the reindeer mother in our Yule celebrations. We tell the kids that on Yule Eve we celebrate and dance with jingle wands and help give the reindeer mother the strength to carry the sun and her antlers higher and higher up into the sky. Christy, I am stealing that.
Yeah, I was about to say, Christy, I love that.
Yeah.
That's
yes. That is so cool.
I love you guys. I love that you guys are sharing all these traditions, especially Yule tends to conjure these things up. A couple friends of mine who are in Oxentoe Theod, I'm going to say the word, but they're great people, and they invite me to their Yule every year. I get the pleasure of inviting them to mine this year. Consider that, Mike. Thanks. That's right. So what I notice that they do each year is there's this kind of ritual where these men come in the animal masks,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not supposed to interact with them. You're not supposed to like talk to them. You're basically supposed to bring them to the fire. And when they get to the fire, you start the fire, and then they warm themselves by the fire, and then slowly they sort of they begin to stretch and take off the masks, and they become kind of human again. And it seems to me this kind of ritual of I hate to use the word civilizing, but a word of like of incorporating people, the stranger from outside, bringing them in, warming them, but treating them with hospitality. And thus, where they seemed beastly and scary before, you now see, having given them that hospitality, having shared gifts with them, they become just like you see. They're just like you, right? You see, it's just it's not some monster. It's just a man who was cold and he wore an animal skin, right? But it's a really, there's lots of drumming and chanting and stuff like that. But it's a really wonderful. But at the end of it, it just seems like this very wonderful ceremony of like what the meaning of hospitality is, and how important it is, and how we want to reflect on that at Yule, of what it means to give someone a place to stay and a place to belong when they don't have anywhere else to go. Oh, and Sarah, why aren't you popping in here, buddy? So this Yule will gather together and bring the blessings of Yule together now that Aon is gone, and bring blessings together for the coming year. Till oss och frider. Thank you. Yes, to that. And of On Piper.
Yes.
What is On? You were the one who told me about this, and Sarenth is saying it now. So I want you to tell everyone what is On, because you mentioned On New Year, right?
On year. It is Dr. Rune Harno Rasmussen, who does the Nordic animist stuff. He's got and by all means, check his stuff out if you're interested in connecting with spirits of place, especially. But he did a time calculation, and this year, the year 2023, ended up being what was called an on year, which is a sacred period of time where we reconnect with our values and community, and we try to stop sort of because the story of King On, the story of King On is, this was a king who sacrificed his children to live longer and to keep, and it's that idea of holding on to power so much longer than you ever should, right? So much. AUN. And I'm probably pronouncing it incorrectly because I can barely pronounce English. Anyway, so but it's a sacred year of reconnecting to our communities, to our environment, to the things that are important to us as animists and as heathens. And we, I actually celebrated this here where I am this year. And it's been a rough year for a lot of reasons. But I think it's an important lesson that we as people that do live very capitalistic lives to take a look at how we live those lives and to stop living our lives that way, right? Stop living our lives in such a wasteful way. Stop killing our future for power in the present. Stop doing those things. So I'm glad other people picked it up also, but it certainly strengthened my spirit of place practice because I compost more, right? Little things. I have primo Euro descended old lady. I have one of those composting things in my kitchen. I started composting this year to make sure that I wasn't being wasteful. I'm trying to, I work with a homeless population here in my city as hospitality to try to reconnect with these people because they've been dehumanized by where we live. And spending this year really looking at how the world is bad and how we can make it better. And that's the most important part of on year, I think, for me and for other people also practicing. So it's not doing what he did. It's repudiating what he did. It's living a life different than that. So anyway, thanks.
I'm so glad I asked that. That was amazing, Piper, and I'm so glad that you shared that you're helping the unhoused.
Yes.
We have people experiencing housing instability. Yeah,
we're having a hard problem with that. I think the entire country is having a problem with that, and it's not okay. And in this on year, especially, it's just when we take the calluses off our souls. Yeah. This is when we start paying attention to what's happening around us. And so that's the lesson of this year for me. So we'll see how things are in another 8 years.
Yeah, and there's for anyone who wants to know, like what can one do for people experiencing housing crises. There's a couple different things you can do. One can do direct aid to encampments if there are encampments in your area. There's certainly organizations that coordinate that. I know we have a few here in St. Paul and the Twin Cities that actually do direct aid to the camps, giving them supplies, heat, things like that. There's also, and I think if someone's like, well, I'm not not really comfortable just like going and doing that. Okay, well, there are ways that you can advocate on the municipal level for the unhoused. In a lot of cases, guys, a lot of cities can deal with the people who are unhoused. They deal with them as almost as if they just want to sweep them away, as if they themselves are garbage, and they're not. And you have to. And it takes a lot to go into city. It takes a lot of political willpower to sometimes go in and challenge some of the reasonings that people use to remove the unhoused from the city, because they don't go away, right? Their situation doesn't improve. I also, Kat actually has a really good thing in here. If you want to donate some socks, very important to do. Like donating socks, clothing, coat drives are important, especially little coats for kids. It is really unfortunate, everybody, but kids do experience houselessness. It happens everywhere, and it happens to more people than you'd think. Kat, thank you for sharing with us. Yeah. Kat, a person in our own chat has experienced that.
I have also been homeless.
Yeah.
By the way, I've spent like years homeless or badly housed, or, so that's why it's an important cause for me. And also, there are also one of the coolest things that we used to do was, before my fingers don't work for it anymore, but we used to knit socks and go give them to the homeless, right? Because socks are relatively easy to knit, they're fast, all of that stuff. So socks are very definitely needed. Kids' coats, all of those things. But there are usually organizations in your space, right? And talking to a city about that isn't as hard as you think, actually. Your city municipal things really don't like to hear a whole bunch of people in a line complaining about the unhoused, or complaining about how they're treating the unhoused, right? And that usually compels them to look for some money for something. Right?
Yeah, and it's important to note that when you go do that work, guys, because the unhoused are a lot of them are scared. Like they spend, a lot of people, when they're in that situation, when they're that desperate, they're doing all they can not to be seen, right? You do everything you can so that so people don't look at you, like they don't find you a nuisance. And putting yourself in front of City Hall makes you noticed. It puts eyeballs on you. It is something that would make you very uncomfortable, especially people going through like mental crises, who might not maybe people who don't have the best communication skills. But if you do, you have an opportunity to speak and advocate and do something very, very good. And the more voices you can join to that, I think we were talking with Sheldon. This reminds me, we were talking with Sheldon a couple of weeks ago at the Interfaith community. When you show up in solidarity with people, that is when you really are making that impact. In addition to, as we saw here, really great suggestions of socks, sanitary pads, these donations you can make to just get someone through to tomorrow, right? And then for those of you who can advocate for the homeless and the unhoused on the city level, if you can, please do. And I think that's a great message as we close out today. I think Brian had one last thing to say. So another way to contribute: Pagan Pride and other public events are great vehicles for collecting socks for a local organization that distributes items effectively. Absolutely. It's something I think we should consider at Troth events. So I don't know if anyone here, I'm hosting a Yule here in St. Paul. It's going to be pretty big, and I'm going to make sure that we have a charity there, or someone collecting donations from people there as well, because it's not enough that we just all gather together and share hospitality with one another. It's about the person, sleeping in their car tonight, right? Who's not going to be with you. The person who is, as Brian said, just a paycheck away from being unhoused. Those people who really need help. So that's what we want to do. And I want to thank Piper and Jay for being here tonight. You guys have some parting thoughts for the holidays.
I'm also doing something similar for Yule for our unhoused population, collecting stuff. Our kindred's going to be going around and collecting stuff in a caroling sort of way. It'll be interesting. We'll see what happens. Anyway, yeah, definitely. If you're interested in helping out in any way, check out our volunteer forum fair on the 19th. Because we love you and can use you.
You can. All right, folks. It's been great to chat with Poppin. Thank you guys so much. And just want to say, happy holidays.